Welcome everyone to Conversations in the Workplace featuring Lorie Reichel-Howe. I'm Denise O'Malley and the founder of You Define Wellness. And it's our pleasure to bring to you every single month this wonderful program that Lorie has created. It's also the name of her business, Conversations in the Workplace. And today is a special treat because today is a chance to ask questions of Lorie. And those are always just some of the juiciest ones when we're getting into the actual situations that are happening in your life and in your workplace. Before we jump into that, I do want to share something with you that's happening. So this will not be evergreen for those who are watching the recording. And we know a lot of you are watching the recording. So You Define Wellness, we focus on two things: education and affordable access to the services of choice through our employee benefit programs. But I want to tell you about something in this little purple box over here. Transitions 2021 is our semi-annual wellness fair for business and self. And we have a great program lined up later this month, August 26th to 28th. Don't roll your eyes and think, oh my gosh, I don't have 3 days to go to it. You know, but guys, if I wasn't putting it on, I wouldn't have 3 days to go to it. That's why on each one of the agendas, we have the times listed as when our speakers will be presenting so that you can come and go. It's one registration, gets you into all the events, all 3 days, and it's free this time. This is the last one we're going to be doing for free. We've been doing these for about 5.5 years now, and this is the last one that will be free. 2022 will be a little bit different. But there are 3 tracks that we're specializing in. One is for small business owners who want to strive to a higher level within their business and achieve the success that they've been envisioning. One level is for human resource professionals to help support you in a way different way. And then we're having 2 tracks, or one track that's split into 2. There's an actual wellness fair with virtual wellness experiences that nobody's ever done before. And it's really kind of a cool thing that we're doing. The HR track, we are going to have Lorie Reichel-Howe as one of our panel presenters. But we invite you to go over to this site and wander around and see some of the great expertise that we are bringing to you. It's a dynamite program that we've got. The other thing I want to share with you is on our website, we have this YDW recorded, and you will find we've done hundreds of recordings over the last 5.5 years. That's how long we've been around. And I can tell you that a lot of them, not all of them, are on our website. But if you've missed some conversations with Lorie, just go over to YDW Recorded and choose the Occupational Wellness button. And you will find all of the previous recordings that we've done with Lorie and a whole bunch more. So if anything, this is a place that if anything's going on in your life and you're like, man, I need help with something, you can go to our library and you will find all kinds of help. So with that being said, and without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Lorie. I'm not certain, Lorie, where you want to start, if you want to start with questions or if you already have something prepared to start with.
Let me start, because one individual who is with us today gave, I just remember, a fabulous question. And so what I would like to do is go ahead and pull that up, and that will give people a bit of time to then put together a question or scenario that they may have.
Okay.
So let me do that. I think I first have to pull up. I'm going to take control and I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint. Let me get it in presenter view. And let's go to that fabulous question. And it was, someone contacted me and said, Lorie, I have an employee that wanted to meet with me and said that she believes her manager is targeting her. In hearing what the employee said, the HR professional thought, well, in my mind, the manager is simply doing his job. So how do I respond? These were some of my recommendations. And again, here is the question, And so in dialoguing, what I invited this HR professional to do was to explore the differences between what does it mean if you are targeting someone versus what does a manager do when they are holding someone accountable? And I suggested that she might even do a T-chart to look at that. And a manager's job might involve the following: to supervise and observe a member of a team. A matter of fact, she might even bring up the manager's job description. So to supervise and observe, it is also the manager's job to provide ongoing feedback. And that should always include what are their strengths, what are they doing well. It should also provide feedback on needed improvements, what they can do that would improve their success, the team success, the organization success. That is a manager's job. Now, the manager's job is to ensure both responsibility and accountability, as well as to support this individual success. And that should come by giving feedback, recognizing again strengths, needed improvements. Now, when you targeting someone, here are my thoughts. The difference between targeting is when you feel singled out and the manager would have a personal agenda towards this person. So singled out, this person could be, expectations could be put on them that wouldn't be put on someone else. It would be if there was negative intention, if the expectations were unfair, unrealistic, or not given resources needed to meet those, and where the person would become a victim instead of having their support encouraged, and also feedback that would support their success. So just an example there of what that conversation and what you might do together in making it very, what you want to do is make it observable, factual, specific. And then what I suggested is that the HR professional ask this individual some questions. What you want the person to do making the claim is to get some clarity in their own mind. It's better if they make the conclusion versus you making the conclusion. And that way HR isn't taking a side, but they're inviting this person to think critically and come up with their own conclusions. You also play neutral in that position. So some of the questions that I suggested is, one, is your manager asking you to do something that is expected in your role? Is what they're asking realistic, reasonable? Is it fair? Now, other ways of asking that question is, if someone else were doing your job, would the manager make the same request? And is this, or would it be a fair expectation of other team members? Also, would you make this request of an employee if you were the manager? So specific ways to ask. You're not telling them, but you're leading them through a process of thinking and thinking critically. And another question, will you be more successful if you do what the manager asked? Also, will your team, will your department and organization be more successful? So if it's possible, Denise, can we get some feedback from those attending via, I don't know if the chat box is the way. Any thoughts, any questions? We've got some experts here, and I would love to hear I know Sterling does some executive coaching. Ben is on, Anita, and Corinne. Would love to hear if anyone has some thoughts, wants to do some engagement in regards to that.
I have a comment.
Great.
My question would be, because when you use the word targeting, that's a strong defensive term right off the back. And it brings a perception of unfairness, discrimination. That's number one. Two, if you felt targeting, let's go down that path. How long has the personal employee felt targeted? What does that look like? Because as you alluded to, my experience in executive coaching is sometimes we're looking at the same thing, but we see it, perceive it differently.
Mm-hmm. What we see versus what we perceive.
Yes, critical. And I like the T examples you gave, Lorie, because it could be just accountability. Targeting is more on the defensive, unfairness, discrimination, and so forth. But why? My next comment would be, how long has this targeting been going on?
Okay, and I like you said, how long and what does it look like?
Right, what does it look like? And is the targeting verbal, email, action? I mean, really, what is that? Now I'm sounding like I'm not a psychologist, but you have to ask that. And why would you use that term targeting? That I'm going back to that because it's just a strong defensive term. And it very well could be the manager is just, they're being held accountable. So they want to make sure you can perform, pardon me, you have the capabilities to perform for the job that you're in, and you can adapt to the needs that's required every day, and you're flexible. So that's why I said, you know, how are you perceiving this? Now, it could be targeting, but then you want to take the necessary steps and meet with your manager to discuss a plan so both of you are pleased. What does it need to be for you to be a performer in his or her eyes? And it may not be you just checking off the box doing your job. In my experience, it was attitude. Attitude and behavior synonymous. You know what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, your attitude is carried out in your behaviors.
Yes, and that plays out in so many facets. That's why it's so important if someone's coming on or given a new responsibility, management leader, whomever, team leader sits down and discusses, this is where we are, this is what's expected. Let's walk through what a day in a life in this new role, Lorie, Sterling, Denise, will look like. And or sometimes you need coaching. And we all need a level of coaching. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but a minor tweak or adjustment to take on the responsibilities that's required of you in this role. Same thing in our personal lives.
Okay.
We all need feedback and insight.
Yeah, and what I hear you saying, Sterling, is, and now we move to performance. So once we find out through conversation, through what's the difference between accountability targeting, once this individual gives examples and we look at that, then getting clarity on which one it is. And if it's then that the manager is holding this person accountable, questions such as making the expected behavior very clear, where describing the gaps, and then also asking what kind of resources do you need to be able to step up? And then it also turns into, you know, what would be an accountability conversation. And then ending with, I'll be watching for this. I want to support you in increasing your success here. So yeah.
It takes me going back to my initial point. Why the word targeting, and how long have you had, or what's been the interaction with you and this manager? Recently, for several months, etc. And how have they been performing? if they were under other leadership, how were they performing? If you've been at the company a year or two, how have your performance evaluations been? If they conducted that, it just gives a background story on the person that's saying, hey, I'm being targeted. Okay, but let's look at why you feel you're being targeted, and let's make sure that you're approaching this doing everything possible. So if you're doing everything possible, then it could be a degree of coaching, maybe on your end, but maybe on that manager, which is easy fixable. Yeah, because you want to keep performers, because the company loses, the employee and management loses if you have to do a separation.
Oh, well, there's always the huge cost on that. So wise hiring, wise to support, and good feedback helps employees increase their success. So,
and the collaboration also with everyone involved.
And
the great feedback. Yeah, collaboration is key.
Yeah, I just want to say, as kind of an outsider here in some ways, Sterling, thank you for bringing up that point about targeting, the use of the word targeting, because I think that's really explosive in this day and age, particularly. And so it's really important to be able to dial into why was that word chosen, what has led you to this, and it may not be what they have seen. What they're perceiving, it may not be actual reality of being targeted. So, but it's a very important point that you made about let's look at the use of that word targeting. Yeah.
So let's baton and let's see if people have additional questions.
Well, are you ready for the next subject?
I think so.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that let's talk about passive aggressive behavior at the workplace. So it could be from a manager, it could be from a coworker. Let's say slamming the door when they're angry, or other kinds of behaviors. Whether is it a different way that you would handle it if it were your manager than perhaps a peer coworker?
Yes. With a manager, I'd certainly reference their position and the influence of their actions, that they are in a position of authority and how that would affect them. And I thought you might ask that question. So let me pull up. I did. And this is a question that has been asked before. And what someone told me, and it was their manager. My manager slams the door when angry. And my gosh, this individual said it affects the entire workplace. So what I did, I shared with this person, I said, use the framework that I have shared, and I would make sure to target 3 areas in your conversation. I would start with, positive wants can be in anywhere. I'm going to save that for the end. I would talk with the manager, and I talk one-on-one and let them know what you've observed, what happens when they slam the door. And from your perspective, how it comes across to people, the impact on them. So what they're doing, slamming the door, the impact that it has, and then positive wants. Since it's your manager, it's important for your manager not to feel threatened, but to have a sense that you are bringing this up because their success is being limited by the action and it affects the workplace culture. I created a couple slides here of what this conversation could sound like. So the positive wants, I want to support your success as a manager. I also want to support the success of everyone else working here. So you're for the manager, you're also for the team. Now, what's the action? Slamming the door. I noticed today, and I noticed today, not when you slam the door, but I noticed today that when you slam the door, everyone became silent. Here are the observations, sample observations. In looking around, I believe I saw concern and fear in the faces and in the physical movements. And you might demonstrate some of them. I saw people go, woo, wow. So you could give examples. This credits, it gives evidence. When people are concerned and fearful, they don't feel safe. It's hard for them to focus and their productivity drops. That's important to a manager. You might even talk about their ability to trust. And because it's hard managing up, it can be risky. So being vulnerable can also make it more, your manager more open to this feedback. As a manager, you have a great influence and impact on workplace culture. You're recognizing their position and letting them know. If you're a leader here, you're looked at to lead. While it's awkward for me to share my observations, I want to let you know, I want you to let me know when I do something that negatively impacts others. So what you are doing right now in sharing this information with your manager, you're giving your manager permission to, hey, speak in my life when my actions negatively impact others, because I will be better because of it. And you're saying you're open to your manager doing what you're doing to them right now. It's hard managing up. It's risky. And in order for the manager to listen, they have to, I've heard it said, people don't hear your content until they trust your intent. So you are not bringing this up finger pointing. You're not acting like you want to take over the manager's job, and you're not coming across to someone threatening, blaming, shaming. You are coming across to someone who is pointing out an area, something that someone does that negatively impacts others as well as their success. So in sharing that with, that's how I would direct it if the person were a manager, someone in leadership. And similar with a colleague, I would say, hey, as coworkers, I want to know that you are going to, if I do something that negatively impacts my success, I want to know that you have my back. You're going to share that with me, even if I might not want to hear it. And I think in doing that, we are going to help promote the success of each other. I want you to do that in my life, at my work, and I want us to have a relationship that is open and transparent.
So can we talk about timing on this? I mean, do you wait until the person has settled down a little bit, or do you go right to them and share these thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's situational. I think you need to go with your gut. And I think it's important to see if you think the person is ready. Quite often when you start with, let's go back to positive wants, what you might say is, hey, let's say Jody was the coworker. Hey, Jody, I'm concerned about what happened. And I'm concerned that it may negatively impact your success here. I would love to have a conversation with you because I think there are a few things that you can do that might improve your success. And you can see their receptiveness to it. If they're closed,
Mhm.
pick it up later. I think probably in private, always when you confront something, privacy is always a best way for having a conversation.
Mhm.
Now, there might be a time where something happens in public and other people see it. So their sense of safety, they need to know that you've addressed it. So you might say, hey, in particular, if you're a manager, I want to have a few minutes right now in my office to talk with you about what just happened, get some clarity on that. And so then people know it's being discussed, but it's happening in private with this person. So
Good point. Good point.
but people there is a safety that people have when managers hold people responsible and accountable for behaviors. Also, the worst behavior tolerated becomes a workplace norm, and it defines the culture. And so when issues are not addressed, they tend to escalate and people do not feel safe. And indeed, they're not emotionally safe.
Okay, let's take this another direction on it because I think we've got some good information here. You witness bad behavior in the workplace. You have two options. Well, you have three options. Don't do anything about it. You have one option of going to the person and having a safe conversation like you've been instructing. Or you can go and complain to the manager, where the manager then pulls the employee and says, so someone on the team said this bad behavior, the tattletale. Obviously you're recommending have a safe conversation, but how do you deal with the person who loves to be the tattletale at work?
Well, that is called gossip. Tattletale gossip are pretty much the same thing. So what I would do is I have a series on how to address gossip, and I believe we have put that on the You Define Wellness website. Now, couple things. Gossip is like a fire, it's like a flame. If it's not blown out, it takes over. And I'm in California, so is Ben, and we know about fires right now, and they are hard to extinguish once they get out of control. So a good manager would invite that person to say, I can see you have a concern. And I think it's very important in this organization that people voice their concerns to the person with whom they have the concern. And best teams, managers hold themselves accountable, other people accountable. Co-workers hold themselves accountable and other co-workers. And co-workers hold their manager accountable. They all have those accountability conversations. So making that an expectation, but also permission. And so managers have to be safe with hearing feedback. Then I think for a manager to say, I'm curious why you're talking to me and not addressing this with that person. Or a good manager may also say, well, have you brought this up with that person? And if they said no, and quite often it's no, I don't think that person will listen, they won't respond well. At that point, I would, as a manager, say, well, it is an expectation here that you would have conversations with your coworkers when you have a concern. I don't even step in until you have endeavored to have that conversation. And then I would say, you know, the framework that we encourage. How are you going to open this up with a positive one? How are you going to, what verbiage will you use to identify the action? And what verbiage will you use to identify the impact? So you mentioned 3 things that we do. 1, we avoid, then it escalates, or pretty soon we're the pop can shaken. We also have a conversation, but we don't have it well. And that's why having a framework and having people trained and prepared and having it modeled. And so for the manager, figuring out, is this person avoiding or is this person not skilled? And so the framework can bring that skill. So it's one thing telling people they need to have accountability conversations. It's another thing training them to have them. And I found that people do not arise to expectations, but they fall to the level of their training. So, but managers who let people tattle become part of the problem, and it's aiding and abetting.
Absolutely. So I want to give everyone here an opportunity. If you have a burning question you want to run past Lorie, bounce an idea off of her, bounce a situation off of her, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it. I'm going to give you guys that opportunity right now. Not seeing anybody unmuting, or I've also given you the opportunity to put something in the chat box. So let's go to another situation that can cause a lot of resentment among employees. And that is the employee who takes really long breaks, maybe a 25-minute bathroom break, maybe a 25-minute smoke break, whatever it is that it might be. Peripherally to that is also the person who is the bounces around all the cubicles back in the day when we were all in the same office, and is the socialite. In other words, the person who's not sitting at their desk when they should be. And that causes a lot of resentment amongst the other employees. So how do you deal with that kind of a situation?
Okay. Well, I also think that we probably have to look at, those are different situations, and they are all performance concerns. In case of the bathroom situation, I would specifically address that in a way that it is, I think, well, it is possible that this person may have some bodily needs that they may need a physical accommodation. You can't accommodate, though, for what you don't know. So a great thing to do is to check in. And that, I think that conversation could sound something like this. Could be more of a, I've noticed that you've taken a number of bathroom breaks, you know, assuming this person has said their bathroom breaks. And I came in to chat, you were on a bathroom break. I came back 25 minutes later and you weren't there. So it makes me wonder, you're not making an accusation. It makes me wonder if it's possible that you may need an extended time. You may have some bodily reason for needing 25 minutes or more for a bathroom break. And while I don't want to pry into your personal information, I know that if that is a physical need, then once that's shared with me, we can keep it confidential, and we could make some accommodation to your working day. Maybe instead of the 15-minute breaks, maybe you need a 25-minute break, and we can adjust your work day accordingly. Again, I can't make that accommodation unless you would share that information with me. So please feel comfortable doing so. When you have that conversation, one, it gives the individual a chance to let you know that. If they do, then you just extend the day. You figure they need extra time, so you extend the day. And that way you don't have people resenting. They see somebody is working and stepping up to a full day. If they don't share the information with you, then they are aware that you are noticing and aware of that, and you've talked about that concern. So then you document it and you observe if it continues to happen. If someone feels that they're being monitored, it's more likely that that behavior would stop. If it doesn't, then when you bring it up, you said, yeah, you know what, I checked in before, you didn't share any need to accommodate, and I've noticed a pattern here. And when people see that you are out for an extended amount of time, they lose their sense of trust. They can become resentful, feeling like they may have to pick up the work or that you're not available when they need it. And I see this affecting your performance.
I like that last part a lot, is that it could build resentment among the other workers. I mean, it's a huge argument for work from home right now, but yeah.
Oh, okay, true. Well, and yeah, it's a little bit harder to notice 25-minute bathroom breaks.
Yeah. I haven't been in an office environment in a very, very long time, so it's unusual things for me. Okay, so let's move into another subject. Let's see, I got a lot of things written down here.
Okay, and let me add now, the social you would talk about, I've noticed that you've gone back and forth, and I'm concerned that this is an interruption to your effectivity in the workplace, as well as it can distract others. So please make your social contacts outside and on your break time.
So let's talk about a different type of employee. I'm actually married to this kind of a person who is a percolator. That's what I call my husband. He's a percolator. So when I learned a very long time ago, we don't get into arguments. I learned a long time ago, I have to express my concerns and allow him to walk away and spend time thinking about it. And then we can come back to the subject, sometimes a day or two later, which I have to tell you frustrates me because I'm not a percolator. I want to deal with it right now. Boom, boom, boom. It's done. Let's go. But there are people like that, obviously, in the workplace that, you're going to have two different types of people, the percolator and the instant gratification person. When disagreements occur between them and the percolator needs time to reflect, how do you talk about that to pave the way?
Well, curiosity is a good approach, as we talked earlier, and I think even Sterling gave some examples of the benefit of that. So, and you say, hey, I think we are at a difference of opinion at this point. I've noticed that you are reflective, and I know that it's valuable giving people time to reflect. I also know that we've got some deadlines here, and so a decision will have to be made. What I would do is say, do you feel a need and would it be beneficial if I gave you a day to reflect on this, 24 hours, and then we meet tomorrow at this time, and then we make a decision moving forward. So, and the 24 hours, because like you, I am let's get it all on the chalkboard, the issues, and let's address those. And I found that my spouse, my husband, will want time. And so, and I think it was a counselor friend who said something about 24 hours. What I don't want is, but once I brought it up, I don't want to have to bring it up again. So the agreement is, okay, toss the baton, you have 24 hours, and then within 24 hours, will you come to me? And so those of us who are racehorse, let's take care of this, it gives me a timeline I also then transferred the responsibility.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not going to forget in 24 hours, but I shed the responsibility. And that really, if I would have to bring it up in 24 hours, then to me, it would be kind of a double whammy.
Mhm.
And so, and vice versa. So although I like to talk about things, I will put more time in, I will need more time for a decision. My husband can come to a decision really probably more quickly than me.
Yeah.
So Denise, how much of that, what I just said, hit your question?
Well, it absolutely did. It's exactly what I do. And we've been married for almost 25 years now. So
Oh.
it works, but I was very much, let's have it out right now. Let's hash it out. And
Mhm.
there was no having that with him. So yeah, same thing, but I've seen that in the workplace too.
Can I throw in something
Yeah.
that my dad said?
Yeah.
He said, still water runs deep. And he
Mhm.
said, people, and he said this about one of his grandsons. And he said, you let him think and then you listen and it's going to be good. So there's a point to those who process. And some of us when people are impulsive, sometimes it's their blurt, it's the first, but once we start processing it, ideas get better. Go ahead. And I think somebody may have made a chat
Nope.
comment.
Nope. We have somebody who has to leave early, so we were just communicating about that in the chat box.
Oh.
So you frequently, we've done a number of these now, and you frequently have said something that is curious to me, and and that is for people to become curious when there's a breakdown occurs or something's happening, and it's something I have never thought of thinking of it that way. When there's issues going on in the workplace, is to become curious about the breakdowns, why they're happening. But how does one become curious?
Oh, fabulous. I am glad. Let's share screen because um I know I put together something on curiosity. Let me on the spot. Let me see here.
Okay.
It's one thing to tell people to be curious, but what I love is what are questions? How do we invite that? So here are some examples. Asking someone, what did you mean when you said, or share your concerns about, and I found particularly when people are hesitant or there's an idea that something they are pushing back, ask them why. Would tell me, what are your hesitants? You could say, hey, let's play, and I don't know if devil's advocate, but please push back, because if this idea goes forward, we are going to have to overcome hurdles. Let's think about them right now. Share your hesitation. I'd like to understand more. So curiosity, I think there was a quote, curiosity did not kill the cat, it earned it the Nobel Peace Prize. And for example, here are my glasses. I went to the eye doctor to pick up my glasses, and they said, oh yeah, we mailed your husband's to you, but he said you would want to pick your own up. And I'm thinking, whoa, I work from home. I would have liked to not make a trip to pick up my glasses. What is he thinking? My time is valuable, even if, and at that point I was working from home and it was way before COVID. So fortunately, at dinner that night, I said, sweetie, I picked up my glasses today, and they said something about they mailed you yours, but they didn't mail me mine because you had mentioned about my picking them up. And just say it, he said, oh yeah, Lorie, I know you are precise on the fit, and that sometimes, because I do this sneeze test, achoo, achoo, my glasses stay on. It's a good fit. It has to do with the shape of my nose. Anyway, and I thought, oh, you're right. That makes sense. So, as Sterling said, we have to be careful with our interpretation. Yes, Rob said Lorie would rather pick hers up. But when I heard him say that, well, my time is valuable too. I would love, yeah, mail them to me. I'd save the time. But Rob knew my precision. I saved what could have been really a relational injury by asking a question. Please tell me more. What were you thinking? And how often, I mean, whether it's in a personal relationship or whether it's a workplace relationship, oh my gosh, you can prevent a major clash and prevent yourself from doing relational injury by not being curious and making an assumption or an interpretation that's inaccurate.
All righty. I'm going to take your screen sharing down.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions before I ask my final question? Okay, so Lorie, you obviously have exemplified that you can help people in the workplace and being able to show that you can help lead and train people on how to have these safe conversations so we have a more harmonious workplace going on. Can you talk a little bit about the programs and what it is that you do? And I'm showing your website right now. So everybody see that blue Let's Talk button at conversationsintheworkplace.com. That's how you get on their program, on her calendar.
That indeed that is. And so what I do, in a nutshell, or my elevator pitch would be, I equip managers, teams, and business professionals to have safe conversations. And by that, I mean transformative dialogue that uncovers hidden workplace issues. When people can talk about the issues, get to the core of those, then they foster greater innovation, inclusion, collaboration, as well as they just elevate their leadership to the next level, and let alone what they prevent from happening. And so what I do, and I really believe people need skills, they need language to carry those out, and then they need practice. And I've created a safe conversations framework. I've referred to it, different components that will help you be curious, that will help you open up with positive wants so you build trust and you don't break down. That'll help you get specific to what are the actions so you don't make accusations, you don't make judgments, you don't use words like targeting that might have many negative connotations and come across victim, and talk about the impact. And then you engage in dialogue, ask questions that will get dialogue ending up with making agreements moving forward. Arguments do not end in agreements. So when people have that framework, they put that in place, and that really helps ground them, and it helps them get to the roots. And then what I do, I come in and I do the training, and I'll tell you, a dab won't do you. What I give can be transformational once it becomes habit, and that happens with practice. And things will break down, even if you're doing the right thing and an effective thing. So learning how to navigate through those. And so I do coaching and I help people, they list their scenarios. We practice navigating through those. We also practice responding to worst case scenario. And what works with someone might not work with someone else. There will be bumps in the road, but as you learn to navigate those, you develop your own skills and you become flexible in that, develop what initially becomes very intentional and practiced eventually becomes a habit and it becomes a lifestyle pattern. And so that's what I do, training, I do coaching, and in a nutshell, I'm also creating a safe conversations video resource library. So people that I've trained and organizations that have worked with me, they can go in, they can re-access the training because a dab will not do you. The brain needs retention review to really get to mastery, to get to habits. And an accountability I've given in that video library, I've given videos of actual safe conversations, addressing gossip, addressing blame, excuses, things like today, targeting versus accountability. So I found that people need a number of resources. People learn differently, but coaching, practice, those having resources, those are effective. And sometimes people need them when they need them. So that's where the library has helped people, or a manager who needs to talk to his team about gossip, having that video, there you go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And on that note, we're going to end the recording for those who are watching this recording so that those who are here live they can ask their questions privately. But we thank everybody for joining us. And so we hope to see you on the next Conversations in the Workplace.